Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Fascinating Big Ten matchup. Penn State heading on the road to play Wisconsin in Camp Randall. 7:30 Eastern Time kick. It's going to be an electric environment. And I think the storyline heading into this matchup is you look at this Wisconsin team has been elite on defense the last couple of games. You're going up against the Penn State offense that has been really good to start 2024. The biggest storyline for Penn State that I think is getting ignored according to the national media is just how good this Penn State offense has been, specifically through the air. They're significantly more explosive than they were in 2023. That's been the Penn State bugaboo the last couple of years. They've had a defense that they can go out and win a Big Ten championship with, but that passing attack has never really been there. It certainly seems like it's there going into this matchup. Now you're going up against a Wisconsin defense that has been really good the last 3 weeks. It feels like something needs to give in this football game. Fired up to get into some matchups. Now, before we do, and as always, let it fly in the comment section. Penn State coming in less than a touchdown favorite on the road against Wisconsin. A lot of different ways this football game could go. Whether you agree with the takes, whether you disagree, let it fly in the comment section. That's the beauty of doing these preview prediction episodes. The amount of support's been amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with this Penn State offense going up against this Wisconsin defense. Now, take a look at Wisconsin the last 3 football games that they've played. Against Northwestern on Saturday, they only gave up 209 total yards and 3 points. Take a look at the Rutgers game, 271 total yards, only 7 points. Against Purdue, 216 yards and only 6 points. I think the conversation is Wisconsin's defense, the eyeball test to what the numbers are telling us. It's been an elite defense, and this Wisconsin defense is very good. Now, those 3 games haven't been against juggernaut offenses. You're having a Penn State offense coming to town that you take a look at the numbers and say 34 points per game scored. That's 25th in the country. But I think more importantly, 7.1 yards per play for this Penn State offense. That's top 10 in the country. The big storyline, I think, heading into this one, I think there's 2 storylines for this matchup. One, can Wisconsin stop this Penn State rushing attack? Wisconsin's secondary has been absolutely nails. You take a look at the numbers, a 55% completion percentage given up to opposing quarterbacks. That's number 13 in the country. 6 yards per pass attempt. That's number 15th in the country. But you look at stopping the run, they've given up 4.5 yards per carry. That's only 78th in the country. You look at Penn State's offense, they want to run the football as much as we talked about the explosive passing attack, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. They run the football 60% of their offensive snaps. They average 5.2 yards per carry. I think the first question mark is, can Wisconsin stop this Penn State ground attack? You know, Penn State going on the road to a hostile environment, they're going to want to get Drew settled in. The best way you can do that is give Drew a rushing attack. You got 2 really good running backs in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. You got an offensive line that, quite frankly, has been a lot better than I expected after losing some really good football players to the NFL draft. And I think the second storyline is, if Wisconsin can stop the run game, can they stop this passing attack? Now, Penn State does not throw the football all that often, but when they do throw the football, 10.3 yards per pass attempt, that's 5th best in the country. Now, the storyline here is Penn State too one-dimensional in their passing attack, leaning on Tyler Warren? He is by far and away the most targeted pass catcher. Taking Tyler Warren out of the football game is much easier said than done. You thought USC would try to do that. They certainly couldn't. Can Wisconsin, with what I think are some talented linebackers and safeties, have some sort of plan to deal with Tyler Warren? Now, to give Coach Koldnicki a ton of credit, he uses Tyler Warren in some wild ways, moves him around formations, really schemes this offense around him as a playmaker, which for Penn State fans, you should love. You go back to 2023, there was really no attempt to get creative with the difference makers on this Penn State offense. In 2024, Coach K has done a really good job identifying who are the guys on this offense and how can we get them involved in different ways to let them have an impact on the football game. Now, if Wisconsin can take away Tyler Warren, I think the question is, does Penn State have the talent in the wide receiver room to kind of win some matchups? Like, if you want to allocate a lot of attention to Tyler Warren, you're going to get some favorable matchups on the outside. Can these Penn State wide receivers take advantage of some of those beneficial matchups? Wisconsin's got some really good cornerbacks, headlined by Ricardo Hallman, that have been playing really, really well. That's the other storyline you're looking at. I think Drew's been really, really good at quarterback for Penn State. And you look at the touchdown to interception ratio, 11 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. I think people talk too much about that last year. Like, Drew was really good at taking care of the football in 2023, but really wasn't a difference maker at the quarterback position. I felt at times too conservative with the football. Like, look, it's a 5-star quarterback we're talking about. You brought Drew in to be a difference maker for Penn State, to take this Penn State offense, up a notch. And although he's thrown 4 interceptions, had a couple against USC, I like to see him being aggressive and trying to be a difference maker for this Penn State offense. Can he continue to do that against Wisconsin on the road? That's what I'm looking at. Now, you flip sides here and say, Wisconsin, I think the storyline for Wisconsin is you bring in Luke Fickell and Phil Longo. You think you're going to spread it out a little bit more. I felt like last year, and maybe even to start the season for Wisconsin in 2024, they kind of got away from what Wisconsin does best, and that's run the football and play good defense. I feel like over the last 3 football games, you've kind of seen Wisconsin get back to that. And that doesn't mean they don't have difference makers on the outside, like guys like Will Pauling, who I think is legitimately one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. But you look at Purdue, 228 rushing yards, Rutgers, 309 rushing yards, Northwestern, 199 rushing yards, running the football, controlling the line of scrimmage, controlling the time of possession, and playing good defense. That's the recipe that Wisconsin's been using to win these last 3 football games. Can they replicate that against Penn State? It's not going to be easy, because we all know how good this Penn State front seven is. You take a look at the numbers. They're only allowing 3.2 yards per carry. That's 15th in the country. Kentawi Walker and a few really talented young running backs for Wisconsin. Can they get it going against this Penn State defense? That's probably what you're looking at. And I think a big storyline in this football game is, I don't need Wisconsin to run for 300 rushing yards against Penn State, because quite frankly, I think we all recognize that's probably not going to happen. You got to give Penn State the respect in the front seven. That being said, can you run the football efficiently enough where you avoid staying in those second and third and long spots? Because that is where Penn State will absolutely kill you. It's one of the best pass rushing units that we see in the country, headlined by Abdul Carter. If you're Wisconsin, we don't need you to run the football for over 300 yards like you like you did against Rutgers. But what you need to do is run the football effectively and efficiently enough to stay out of those second and third and long situations. And Tawi Walker, he's the running back you want to be efficient. Like, this guy's an absolute bulldozer. He's a no-nonsense back that wants to attack the line of scrimmage. And then if you're Penn State, can you stop the run? But can you also take away Will Pauling in the passing attack? Very similar conversation that we had with Penn State and Tyler Warren. It's kind of a similar situation with Wisconsin and their passing attack. They want this passing attack to go through Will Pauling. And like Penn State is creative with Tyler Warren, Phil Longo is very, very creative with how to use Will Pauling and moving him around the formation. This game feels like it's a matchup kind of game. And can Penn State or Wisconsin kind of take away the difference makers in this football game is probably going to be the question getting into the pick here. And this is, I think, a fascinating game. I'm going to go Penn State to win this game and cover the number for a couple of different reasons. I want to start with, this doesn't really have much to do with Wisconsin. I think this is a very, very good Wisconsin football team. And Luke Fickell has kind of figured out how he wants this football team to look from an identity standpoint. A couple things stick out. One, I think Penn State's going to have some success running the football. I think Wisconsin, although has played better against the run the last couple of weeks, against some of the better rushing attacks, like in Alabama, struggled to stop the run. I think when you go on the road, you want to lean on your rushing attack and playing really good defense. I think that is what Penn State will do. I think more importantly, Wisconsin's had a lot of success running the football. That's been part of why they've had so much success winning their last 3 football games. It's really hard for me to look at Wisconsin and say they're going to have their way against Penn State in the front seven. You look at Penn State's last performance on defense against USC and you say, oh, they gave up 30 points to USC, not a great performance. I give a lot of credit to Lincoln Riley, because you go back and watch that football game, it really came on just a couple of plays. Lincoln Riley, one of the best offensive minds in the country, did a really good job of confusing Penn State and having some kind of wrinkles that really pop for some gainers. Can Wisconsin do that? That's probably a question mark coming into this one. But Penn State coming off a bye, having the opportunity to maybe clean up some of the mistakes that they made on the defensive side of the football with a rushing attack that I think will travel on the road. Give me Penn State to win this football game. I think it's going to be a good one. I think there's a reason that this line is sitting at 6.5 points. I'll take Penn State because I think they can run the football. I think they can stop the run. And that's kind of how Wisconsin has been winning their football games. It's kind of a different animal when you're playing a Penn State team that's legitimately top 5 in the country. Fired up for this one. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Let it fly in the comment section if you disagree with the takes. And if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.